In the last video, you heard about statues of votive figures, which are examples of objects that would have been found in shrines. Next, we'll talk about art that has been found in tombs. Here is the bull lyre, which is an example of a mixed media piece. And by that, I mean an object that is made of various materials. Beginning around 3000 BCE, Sumerian artists who were working in various metals combined these materials with other materials like wood, lapis lazuli, red limestone, bitumen, and shell. Some of these materials, most of them in fact, including the gold used on the bull head and the lapis lazuli, which is this brilliant blue stone, are extremely expensive materials. So we know that this object would have been made for an elite person. And in fact, it was recovered in a tomb of a queen. It is a musical instrument, a lyre, which is a bit like a harp. And here you see it reconstructed. None of this would have survived. We're mainly looking at the sound box here, this inlay at the front, and a gold head. We see a slightly different object here. In the front of the sound box, we see a three-dimensional bull's head made out of gold, and he has a fabulous bright blue beard made out of that precious stone, lapis lazuli. We think that this might represent the god Shamash, the sun god, who's also associated with resurrection. He would go down into the underworld and rise with the sun, and therefore he represents resurrection. It makes sense that this imagery and the association with Shamash would appear on a lyre, because a lyre as a musical instrument would have been used in funerary rites. Also, this object was found in a tomb, so that furthers the association with funerary rituals. Again, it's reconstructed, and this is a matter of debate. We see two different versions of a reconstruction here of a bull lyre. And you'll notice that this inlaid part in front of the sound box is somewhat obscured by the lapis lazuli bull. Some scholars think that this just has to do with a problem of how it was reconstructed after it was found. Or it's possible that it doesn't really matter if imagery is hidden by the bull, because it was meant for a tomb and only meant for the eyes of the gods, and the gods could see through the beard. Either way, we have a version of what that inlay in the front of the sound box would look like right here. As you can see, it's this white part is made of shell, and it's inlaid on a black background, and this black background is bitumen, that kind of black tarry substance that I mentioned is often used to cover mud bricks in ziggurats. So it's here being used as the black background for the imagery. As you'll notice, that imagery is organized again in registers, which we talked about in the Warka vase. Sumerian artists often used registers to organize very complicated pictorial compositions, but they can show discrete scenes or a narrative unfolding in time. There's a lot going on here, so I thought we would start at the bottom and describe each of the scenes, and then talk about what the meaning might be. On the bottom register, we have a scorpion man, half scorpion, who was often seen as the guardian of the entrance to the underworld. He is holding a beaker right here, And he's attended to by a gazelle standing on hind legs. And the gazelle is holding two cups, which we can assume the gazelle has filled from this large vase that is behind him. If we move up to the next register, we see a bunch of animal musicians. A donkey, standing on his hind legs again, is playing a lyre. And it looks very much like the lyre, the bull-headed lyre. We can see the strings and the head on the sound box. So he's essentially playing the instrument on which he is depicted. A bear is helping him hold up that lyre. So it's being supported by a bear. And then there's a fox here that is playing what has been described as a percussion instrument, although it kind of looks like a flute. If we move up to the next register, there is an animal serving, there are animals serving at a feast. So here we have a hyena, again, standing on its hind legs, who is acting as a butcher. And we know that because he's holding a butcher knife. And on this platform, on this tray, is mutton and pork. Behind him is a lion, again, standing on their hind legs. So all of these animals are acting like humans, and is holding a jar and a pouring vessel, which, again, he is filling from a vase below. And then finally, on the top register, which is kind of the strangest of them all, we see a man in the center who is facing us. He has long hair and a beard, kind of like the bull, and he is naked, except for maybe a belt around his waist. And he's either embracing or wrestling two human-headed bulls. So they're very clearly, they have the bodies of bulls, but they have faces that, again, are facing right at us, looking right at us. So what does all of this mean? Scholars pretty much agree that this scene, at least the one at the top, represents royal control over nature. And that extends to the other scenes as well, it's also filled with animal attendants that seem to be at the service of the human at the top. Scholars also pretty much agree that the scenes represent funerary rituals that explain the process of death. This is backed up by the fact that indeed it was found in a tomb and is depicted on an object, a lyre, that is used in funerary rituals. Some scholars go a bit further and believe that it may be a reference to the world's first epic literature, the Song of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh, of course, was the fifth king of Uruk, who was initially not seen as a very good king, but then goes on an epic journey. And when he returns, he is a much more improved ruler. He rules for 126 years and builds the Uruk walls. On his journey, as the story goes, he meets a companion who at first they are mortal enemies and they get into fights, but then they develop a relationship of friendship and become the best of friends. In the story, his new best friend dies, and Gilgamesh attends his funeral rites of this new friend. And so what we might be looking at here is a reference to the realm of the dead and Gilgamesh honoring his friend by attending his funeral rites. And I'm showing you here again an image, a much later image of Gilgamesh, in which we could see that he, with his long hair and his long stylized beard, is holding a lion in much the same embrace that the figure in the center of the sound box is embracing these two bulls. And animals, whether we're looking at this relief of Gilgamesh or the many animals in the inlaid designs on the front of the sound box, are used in scenes of funeral rites because they are the guardians of the underworld.